wait. Let's see if the Shabab are popping in.
Is it done? Did you, I bet you it's not working. Nope. You probably linked the key again on OBS.
My wife can
Oh wait, I see it.
You are lying.
I see it. Hold on.
You and your web of lies.
I see it. Hold on.
You and your web of lies. Oh, I'm glad.
We're live. So can you mute the stream?
Can you mute?
Yeah, can you mute our stream?
Oh, okay. Hang on. Sorry, I muted this.
He's telling me to mute, and he's.
Be patient with this.
Oh.
Hadi bismillah. That's how our little talks go.
He's so regretting this.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Mamluks podcast. My name is Sim. Along with me are my co-hosts Sheikh Amir and Mort.
Assalamu alaikum.
We have an amazing guest and a wonderful show for you guys this afternoon. But before we do that, help us out on patreon.com/themamluks. We are entirely self-supported. Do not get any help from YouTube or any other kinds of other avenues of revenue. So it's important that you guys help us out through $1 or $2. We're not asking for the big bucks that you should send to places like Syria or what have you, but we just want a couple bucks. That's it. Crowd support, as they call it, as the young kids call it, right? Crowd funded.
So the lights can stay on.
Yeah. That's all we're asking for. Folks, we have an amazing guest for you guys this afternoon. His name is Tauqir. Tox is his nickname. Yes. Sharif. Tauqir Sharif. He is a humanitarian aid worker working out of Idlib, right? Am I pronouncing that right?
No, I'm in Aleppo now.
Oh, he's in Aleppo right now. But he was in Idlib. There was that precarious situation. We'll get to that later. Tauqir Sharif, welcome to the show. Assalamu alaikum.
Thanks for having me.
It's been quite a
You will not be
so
thanking
far.
us for after the show. we had a fun pre-show. Let's just tell the listeners he was getting well acquainted.
I'm enjoying it. This is different.
Good.
He's part of the gang now.
It's part of the.
Too late. You're initiated.
Too late.
You can't do anything about it.
He's been red pilled. Too late.
Talks to me. Start off with basic questions, just because a lot of our show is primarily American. The people in Britain, as y'all say, they're pretty well acquainted with you. They know who you are. The Shabab in America, we like dancing and movies, and we don't really care about many issues. Not everyone, of course,
they're
but
a bit fruity.
we can be a bit artsy. Let's just
Speak for yourself.
Okay. So tell us. I think most people have heard of the Syrian war. Alhamdulillah, we're not that backwards here. But why and when did you go to Syria, and what were you thinking, man? Like, that's what most young Muslims think. Like, wait, you dedicated your whole life effectively being put under the microscope by government organizations, and people are monitoring you and your family. Why would you make that kind of a sacrifice? Why can't you just send some money and let someone else handle it?
SubhanAllah, it's an interesting question. I came in 2012 to Syria, so really early in the beginning of the revolution. But my story kind of began before that. So in 2006, 2007, I was involved in it would have been 2006. I was involved in a gang fight, ended up getting stabbed twice. And that was kind of a turning point for me. Ended up getting an opportunity in 2009 to go to Gaza, Palestine. And that was an even bigger turning point in my life.
Wait, let me interrupt you for a second. Were you part of a gang?
Let's just say I wasn't in the best, crowds. A lot of the people that I was,
Thug
with
life.
were
You know,
gangs.
talks the Dilly had this one rapper on, British rapper. The guy, his street cred, he's a Muslim guy. He was a
Yeah.
rapper. His cred was that he was driving with an expired license, and he was saying that's he went to prison for like a year or so, and he went to prison for driving on an expired license. That was his street cred. I'm like, there's Tox right here. He could have been a rapper.
Well,
He has
I
proper
mean,
cred.
I got stabbed in East London. My car got robbed. I got beaten up by about 30 guys, and I got stabbed in a place called Warrior Square. So I don't know if that gives me any more.
I just laughed so hard at the street cred that this guy was saying. He's like with a straight face, so serious. He's telling Dilly straight to his face, yeah.
I just want to say that, this is a normal thing to drive with suspended licenses and get pulled over all the time in America. Like, if that's street, I don't know.
Remember one of our friends, we had to bail him out at 2 a.m. in the night?
Yeah. Anyways. So you had this event in East London. East London is more of an immigrant population now, right? A lot of Bengalis, a lot of Somalis now, right? East London?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, East London's quite big, but
Yeah.
yeah, you could say it's multi-ethnically diverse. There's a lot of,
It's not the posh
Depending
area,
on-
right? It's not like where people think of Edgware Lane. It's not like the posh area, right? It's pretty much.
No, it's not like central London. So obviously central London is like very expensive. East London, you got east, north, south, west, and all of them kind of have areas that are more affluent, and then you've got areas that are a bit more
Got
kind of ghetto. But in all honesty, I was kind of brought up in a middle class family, but I end up kind of getting sucked into a certain lifestyle. Unfortunately.
Yeah, no, awesome. So why don't we start with that actually? Like, what is your background? I mean, are you like born and bred in the UK? Like, what's your story? Like, I mean, what was who was Tox like before this whole thing? Like, who are you like growing up in London? Like, are you born and raised there? Like, what's your background?
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in East London. My parents are Pakistani. They came to England when they were very young. My grandparents came here as immigrants, obviously to find a better life for themselves in a sense. And alhamdulillah, I'm like third generation here. Grew up, born and raised here, East London, studied here. Alhamdulillah, I was in a middle class family, not from a broken home or anything like that. To be honest, had a family that's quite practicing, mashallah. But the fitna, the trials, the tribulations is, it's all out there for you. So even if you're brought up in quite a, Islamic family, you can sadly get, pulled away or led astray. And I think for me, one of the things was that I always kind of felt that in the younger years, my parents, they were just learning about Islam or, obviously they were born Muslim, but as in, my mum started wearing niqab and all that kind of stuff. So when I look back at my older brother and older sisters and stuff, and I was like, these guys used to go to theme parks and all this kind of stuff. Why
can't I go to
coming
theme
to age? So I kind of had that kind of thing there. And I've always been kind of an extrovert, known in my family as being loud, bit of an adrenaline junkie. Getting into fights. I like anything fast and furious. So yeah, that was kind of me growing up, always breaking some kind of bone, doing something stupid, hanging off some kind of building or something.
Yeah, cool. So fast forward a little bit, you had these events that you mentioned earlier in your life, later on in life, and then that kind of gets you thinking about, who you are and where you're going. You had the chance to go to Gaza. And fast forward a little bit, and now you make a decision to go to Syria. So what was the catalyst for you to do that? I mean, I know you mentioned the fact that there was the war was going on, or the revolution at that time. But many people, as he mentioned earlier, were satisfied just giving material support or financial support. But what drove you to actually, decide to make that jump and say, I'm going to fly from the UK to Syria in the middle of a revolution?
It's one of those things where I've always been kind of always 100% or nothing. Anybody that knows me kind of like from back in the day knows that if I'm going to do something, then I'm really going to do it 100%, whether it's good or bad in a sense. So alhamdulillah, when I got the opportunity to go to Gaza, that was life-changing for me. Like one of the things that I saw there that really had an impact on me was I saw a people that had so little, yet they had so much. And I was astounded by this because alhamdulillah, in the UK, I wasn't a person that was like a loner. Alhamdulillah, I always had friends. I was popular. Alhamdulillah, had money, had a lot of people around me, but I just wasn't happy. There was like something was missing. I was searching for something. So when I got to go on this trip to Gaza, that was just so astounding for me that these people have so little, but yet they eat together like a family. They, really love each other. They sit with each other. It's like it's the last time that they're gonna see each other. And I stayed with a family, and I just saw that the father, he was a teacher by day and a murabit by night, and the way he would kind of say goodbye to his children was something that will always stay with me. And so that kind of began the journey, and then I was on the Mavi Marmara. I just kind of went from aid journey to the next aid journey. I was on the Mavi Marmara where 9 Turks were killed. We were trying to break the siege on Gaza once again, and then we were arrested, and I was arrested in Beersheba prison in Israel. It was kind of like an international story. Over 50 people were injured, shot as well. So I ended up coming back from that, and it was just, for me, it was just something that I kind of found myself. I felt that this is something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I wanted to help people, and I found that this brought me closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I started practicing throughout this journey. So in 2012, when the war started in Syria, a couple of brothers approached me, may Allah bless them, and because I had kind of gotten known for taking aid convoys to the Gaza Strip, they basically came and approached me and said, look, we want to take an aid convoy to Syria. So for anyone that's probably listening and doesn't really know what aid convoy is, we would basically buy used ambulances, ex-NHS, National Health Service ambulances in the UK, or even in Germany, other European countries, basically get our communities to give aid in our local masajid and local community centers, fill those ambulances up and literally drive through all different borders to Palestine. And again, it was obviously the spiritual side of it, but it was also the adventure of it that kind of got me sucked into the whole thing. And then in 2012, when the whole Syrian conflict began, to be honest, I had been to Syria before that, but I didn't know too much about the internals of the conflict in terms of the Alawite minority population and how they were oppressing the majority Sunni population. I'd seen it myself in Syria pre-war, people holding my beard and crying, and people telling me not to put Quran on loud and all of these kind of things. And it was just like, whoa, what is going on here? But I didn't understand the actual minor details of it. And so in 2012, these brothers came and they were like, look, we want to take a aid convoy to Syria. So I was like, listen, I'll do it, but we got to take non-Muslims and we got to take men and women. And they were like, nope, we're taking only brothers and we're only taking Muslims. I was like, come on guys, you're not going to get me nicked. I was like, you know what I mean? We need to mix it up a bit. And they weren't having it. And eventually they ended up twisting my arm, but we managed to get a few people on there that were quite high profile. One of them being Muazzam Beg, former Guantanamo Bay detainee. And me being the convoy leader, he ended up sitting in my vehicle, and I basically ended up spending weeks with him on the way to Syria, which is something that I'll never forget. and he's one of my teachers, one of my mentors, someone that I respect a lot. May Allah bless and preserve him.
Ameen.
And yeah, the rest is history. Ended up in Syria and just ended up never going back.
So and now people probably ask, is that voluntarily you can't go back, or is that by force, meaning that the British government has stripped your citizenship, or did you already make a decision before they decided to do that? Like that, I'm not going to go back.
To be honest, it wasn't kind of a conscious decision like that. In the beginning, I would go in and out of Turkey with aid, come in and out. I used to have a residency permit inside Turkey. And then it was never kind of a decision that I'm never going to go back. It was just that I just felt like I didn't feel that it was right for me to leave these people in the state that they were in, you know, being killed and murdered. And it always reminds me of the ayah of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا لَكُمْ لَا تُقَاتِلُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ and what is wrong with you that you do not, you know, struggle in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when the men, the women and the children scream out, you know, Ya Rab, save us from, you know, this tyrant or this oppressor. Or so for me, it always reminded me of that. And I just people in such a difficult situation, I just thought that would be kind of betrayal on my part.
Turning your back on them once you've seen them, right?
Yeah, I mean, once you're kind of in a conflict, and this conflict, sometimes when I look back and I'm like, whoa, I've been here 10 years. It's like, I mean, I came here when I was 24, I'm 34 now.
Wow.
I didn't have any kids when I came here. It was just me and my wife. She joined me a few months later. But now I've got, like, you know, alhamdulillah, Allah's blessed me. I've got 3 wives and 8 children. So it's kind of just, you know,
MashaAllah.
it's just been like one of those things.
No, alhamdulillah, no, the story is amazing. But I guess I wanted to ask you that question because, you know, some people will say, oh, well, you know, he doesn't really have a choice, but he's got to stay there now because he can't come back. But I mean, for me, I feel like some of us have been following the journey. I think a lot of people probably really came into contact with you when there was that whole hashtag, Free Tox, right? Free Tox hashtag. And I think that was, you know, we can talk about that a little bit later on, going on in terms of your experience. But what I wanted to ask you was, did you anticipate that you would be like here, like during this war that was raging on? Like, did you, I mean, was there a concern for your safety? I mean, I'm sure your parents must have been like, hey, what are you doing? There's a war going on. You know, Russia's coming with planes. Eventually this whole thing unfolds where it's just, you know, you have the Shabiha, you have, I mean, so many different factions here that, and risk. And then plus you have a Daesh, you have ISIS that's, you know, in the midst of all this, right? So was there any pressure to come back or contact from the government to say, hey, you've got to come back? Or, I mean, was there pressure to leave Syria?
There was. I mean, in terms of my family's always been supportive. Like I said, because I was on kind of like a messed up path before, when I started practicing and I started engaging in aid work, they were very supportive, alhamdulillah. And they've always supported me wherever I went. So for the 2 or 3 years prior to Syria, they were used to me always going out of the country and going on different aid journeys. So Syria kind of wasn't any different in that sense. Mm-hmm. But of course, when things started kind of building up, I mean, there's just been so many different stages. In the beginning, the major threat was the Bashar regime. And so we had a doctor called Dr. Abbas Khan. He took a wrong turning in Aleppo, ended up running into the regime, and they basically captured him and tortured him to death in prison. So it was like, I mean, the dangers are real. And then we had, you know, the rise of groups like ISIS, of course. And me being a person, I mean, our organization, Live Updates from Syria, our kind of slogan is make noise, make change. And that's kind of based upon the fact that, you know, Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy al Munkar is fard wajib upon us. And that's what sets us apart as an ummah. So it's not just about giving out food boxes, you know, it's for us, it's always been about we want to try be muslihun, people that can fix and bring solutions for the Muslims in a conflict when they need us the most, in a sense. So when ISIS came about, I mean, that was a major fitna, because we literally had people coming from all over the world wanting to join them, because the idea of Khilafah, the idea of, an Islamic state is very romantic for a lot of Muslims. Of course, which true Muslim doesn't want to live under the shade of Islam? So, I mean, we were very outspoken, me and a few other people. And I was probably one of the only Westerners inside Syria that spoke out against them publicly. And that was because in 2014, I think, I'm really bad with dates, so you got to figure me, 2014 or 15 it would have been, we brought an aid convoy from the UK, and there was about 100 Muslims, 100 vehicles, and there was one Christian man called Alan Henning. And he was just a taxi driver. He had, felt this emotion for the Syrian cause. So the brothers had kind of brought him along. When he got to Syria, they basically kidnapped him. So ISIS, that is. So I was involved in talking to a lot of their scholars, and trying to bargain and trying to get him out. And we found that these people were exploiting the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for their own gains.
So can you pause it for a second? So were they approachable? Like when you said, "Hey, listen, ya akhi, I have some nasiha, I have some issues," were they approachable to speak to?
In the beginning, see, what you got to understand is that in the beginning, ISIS wasn't this massive, powerful force. There was different areas controlled by different factions. So everybody kind of had to work together. They shared battlefronts in the beginning with people that they later on declared as non-Muslims. Do you understand? So many people, they would say that they're non-Muslims for fighting with certain groups, and then they used to share battles or battlefronts with them themselves. So in the beginning, it was very fluid. Certain areas had certain ports, different areas had different jurisdictions. So they were approachable in that sense. You could go and you could talk to them, but very quickly we realized that, okay, these people are not what they say they are, they're not what they seem. And obviously we started seeing firsthand, I mean, they had a principle that they would say, we believe in something called qatl maslaha, that killing people for the greater benefit. And we were like, where does this exist in the Sharia? Who has given you a fatwa for this? How can you even justify this? And they believed in this. So with Alan, they basically took him. One of the things that they said was that he's a British spy. And I was like, what proof do you have that he's a British spy? There's 100 Muslims on that convoy that have given him a covenant of safety and security. At least respect that. The guy's been in for a few hours. How much information could he have got even if he was a spy, which he wasn't? But they just wouldn't have it. So one of the things that they said to me was that he's got a chip in his passport. So that means he's a spy. So I took my British passport and I said, look, every British citizen has a chip in their passport. And yeah, so I mean, they weren't having it. They ended up taking him to Raqqa and then somewhere else and putting him in an orange jumpsuit and then basically cutting his head off in one of their videos. So for me at that point, I was kind of infuriated, and I decided to speak out against them publicly. So I spoke out against them publicly. I said that these people are, extremists. These people have the traits of Khawarij. They are doing more damage to Muslims than they are to, the Syrian regime. And I had threats on my life. They put a bomb under my car. I used to train people in a gym. They blew the gym up. Alhamdulillah, I ended up getting late that day. Alhamdulillah, nobody got hurt. A few people got injured. So, it was real.
Do you know what's crazy to me? That these are Muslims. So Muslims who want to, they're bombing other Muslims. Like, I mean, imagine if someone came to the gym, some innocent person, some young kid who just wanted to come train and do some push-ups. No. And he gets blown. Blown up. They
will claim the same thing happened to you. Like when you were being tortured. It was very unfortunate to hear that story. It was really difficult for me to hear that. But You remember you said one of the guys said that their sheikh gave him a fatwa that
Wait, we'll come to that later. His torture story. I don't want to get to that right now. We're going to come to that.
We could jumble around.
No. But I just want to know because we'll be out of order then. I mean, the whole this is a process here. So the thing is, I just want to say this though. So they were approachable in the beginning, right? And then so you tried this. You found out that these people are just off the rails, like just absolutely trying to manipulate verses and ayat of the Quran in order to achieve their goal. But when did you did you think it was something at the highest levels of ISIS, or was it just a jahil that was running around with his AK around around the local area, or did you at this time did you think it went all the way to the highest like ranks among ISIS?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, I've met some of their leaders, and I've discussed with them. And when it comes to leaders and just normal soldiers, look, a lot of Brits, a lot of Europeans, when they came, we tried to dissuade them. Many of them ended up going to ISIS. Some of them have made takfir on us, basically, said that we're not Muslims and they would kill us. Others from amongst them tried to leave ISIS, kill them. So this is one of the things that I always say to people. I say, okay, if you believe in this caliphate, then why, when people reach there, why did they not let them leave? If it was, why would they not let people leave? There were so many people that, especially foreigners, they would never, if a foreigner joined their ranks, they would never let them leave. And
so a quick question though. There were allegations of indoctrination through drug use. Like, is there any merit to this? Like, they were being something like they were distribution of drugs that may have made people like hallucinogens. Like they were making them. Is there any merit to that? Do you know of any truth to that?
To be specific, I think they said it was amphetamines to keep them awake and to keep them passionate about what they were doing, and they don't.
Personally, I don't know about drug use within their ranks, and I haven't seen any group here as a policy utilize drugs like that. So obviously I want to be honest and fair, but there has been, which is a completely different topic, but a large issue when it comes to tramadol abuse and painkiller abuse, because obviously a lot of people suffer serious injuries out here. So I mean, I know a lot of people that suffered really horrific injuries and then ended up getting addicted to a lot of these kind of really powerful
opioid
opioid. Yeah. Okay. No. That makes sense. I think. I want to just touch on before we get to the story of your issue, like personally with ISIS, and I want to first talk about Brother Bilal. Like, when did you encounter him? Like, when did you meet Brother Bilal Abdul Karim? Like, when did that happen? That meeting? Is that before or after you were picked up by Daesh?
I wasn't picked up by that.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm saying before. Was this before or after that incident?
Long before.
Okay.
Me and Bilal, mashallah. Bilal, again, amazing brother, one of my mentors, one of my teachers. Allah has blessed me to, have people like that around me. One of the most optimistic, hard-headed, tough individuals that you will ever meet when it comes to mindset. I mean, you don't want to have anyone in prison with you except for someone like Bilal. So I met him, it must have been early. I mean, 2013, I met him very early in the conflict in Aleppo, actually. And what I want you to understand is a lot of these, in the beginning, there was a lot of the territories, 60% of Syria was freed. And then areas were lost, and then areas were gained, and etc., etc. So today, when we talk about Aleppo, we're talking about the countryside of Aleppo. Now, all of the city of Aleppo is back with the regime. But in those days, the city of Aleppo, or the eastern part of the city of Aleppo, was with the rebels, in a sense. So I met him in the city of Aleppo early on in the conflict, and basically, he covered a story on me. One of the first major media pieces that I done was with Channel 4. And so basically it shows, obviously we're bringing the ambulances in, and we were working with a hospital in the city of Aleppo called Mashfa Bayan. And he basically did a story with us, covering us running into, places where barrel bombs were falling, literally pulling people out from from under the rubble, rushing them to the hospital, and that kind of stuff. So that was very early on in the conflict. And then he's just been a really good friend and mentor ever since, alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah. Yeah. I mean, we.
That's by the way, I just showed a picture of Bilal Abdul Karim. He's with On the Ground News, very well known brother. For those who don't know him, he's been reporting live out of Syria on his Facebook page. Make sure you check it out because he's a comedian too. He once shared a picture of his wife, one of his wives, tearing up his shirt with a torn shirt on his Facebook page because he came late to her home. He said this is the consequence of not arriving at your second wife's home on time or something. He's just a character. I love him.
He used to actually do stand-up comedy in New York.
Yeah. Okay.
So his background, his story is very, very interesting, and he's written a book. Inshallah, make dua that gets published soon, but it should be a good read.
Inshallah.
Everyone there.
So now you've met some of, I think at this point in your journey, you've kind of been there long enough to know who's sincere, who's not sincere, who's politically motivated, who's not. You can probably have a good gauge on people that you're meeting every time you sit and listen to their discussions. And I'm sure you being an aid worker, you could probably get pulled into many different conversations, right? I'm sure the politicians want to take advantage of it. The people on the ground do.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that was very, how can I say, swaying for me in the beginning, I didn't speak any Arabic. So when I came and I heard these people saying, ayat and hadith, and I was like, wow, every person that you'd be like, mashallah. So when I started understanding what these people were actually saying, I was like, oh my God, what is going on here? So subhanAllah, it's one of those things, man. Knowledge is so important, especially when it comes to knowledge of Islam, because the deen can be exploited. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I think it's in Surah Al-Baqarah, that those Sheikh Amir probably knows the verse, Inna alladhina yaktumuna, those are the ones who basically
help him out, Sheikh.
Hold on, bro.
Sorry?
I'm thinking, bro. Let him continue.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
I like to put Sheikh on the spot. Tox.
Put him to use.
Sheikh, help him out.
Yeah, put him to
Let him
use.
finish, bro.
Sheikh, help him out.
Hold on.
You should finish the ayah, Sheikh.
He's trying to.
All of Al-Azhar is looking at you right now.
Good.
Listen,
Good.
Sheikh,
Sheikh, can you continue? Don't listen.
He asked you to help him out.
I know, but
and you were silent.
He's not. I want to know what the meaning is.
He's suffering right now. The brother is in Syria.
No, just because he looks like Ali Qureshi doesn't mean you have to joke
That's
around
my
with
cousin.
him, right?
You look exactly like my cousin. The whole time you're talking, I'm like, man, he looks just like my
He
cousin.
must be very good looking.
He is, mashallah, very, and he's fit.
Maybe
He's
you
like
post
his
a
gym
picture
beast.
But anyways, تفضل, continue, brother.
Yeah.
Forget about the
آية
majors.
الذين يكتمون بما أنزل الله بعدما بيناه للناس في الكتاب أولئك يلعنهم الله ويلعنهم اللاعنون.
Yeah.
So you see, this verse is very powerful, like that. The people that basically conceal the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after it's been made clear to them in the book, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala curses them and the curses curse them. And maybe my tafsir is off, but whenever I've met people like this that purposely exploit the verses, especially to kill other people and do mad stuff and to take people's wealth and all this kind of stuff, that's what it's always reminded me of. I say to myself, these people have sold their religion for a cheap price. Allah protect us from that. But yeah, man, in the beginning, like I said, I've sat with so many different people, but alhamdulillah, I've been blessed. And when I came, I was very young, but I've been blessed that alhamdulillah, I traveled a lot, and alhamdulillah, being around different students of knowledge and stuff allowed me to kind of really have more of a diverse understanding, in the sense that I'd been around Salafi shuyukh and Deobandi shuyukh like Tablighi Jama and that kind of stuff, and various others from Sufi Naqshbandiya tariqas and Hizb ut-Tahrir and all sorts of different movements. And that was really a blessing, because coming into a conflict and like I said, people pushing a certain view of Islam and then using that to do some of the most evil things. I think one of the issues that we have as a community is sometimes that we don't want to admit that we have these problems. And I don't want to be like some of these really leftists that are like, they exploit these points and they're like, they apologists. No, we're not apologists, but at the same time, we need to be kind of balanced and recognize, there needs to be a middle path, and it's not about being a pacifist, and it's not about being, at the same time, some extremist that wants to cut everybody's head off. Yeah.
No, I definitely think that's a good point.
Tox, how much do you blame the Islamic movements at all, specifically groups like Hizb ut-Tahrir or Ikhwan, who have been proponents of the Khilafah in a certain, or sorry, not Ikhwan, but Al-Muhajirun in the UK, who kind of fed a lot of the rhetoric that, not so much HT, but I think back then it was Umar Bakri Muhammad in the 90s, who kind of really fed a lot of the, it seemed like they were like the ideologues of groups like ISIS,
I wouldn't say blame, maybe is a strong word, but they definitely had a hand in it. I mean, for me, Anjem Chowdhury, I know him personally. Umar Bakri Muhammad, I know him personally. How in the early days, in the 90s, in the UK, there was this movement of Hizb ut-Tahrir. Khilafah conference was really big in Wembley Stadium and all that stuff. So my family started practicing in that time. So I was like a little kid going to these demonstrations and these talks and this kind of stuff. So a lot of them know me. Even my mum was saying to me the other day, she went to Islamic Fun Day, and Anjem Chowdhury apparently is out of prison now, and he was sending his salam to me. But in terms of what can I say, their viewpoint, 100%. I mean, they had a massive hand in kind of feeding or giving fuel to the fire, in a sense. And I think,
and I don't want anyone to think that from those groups, like, they were unequivocal of their condemnation of ISIS. I'm just talking about the rhetoric and the build-up towards a group like ISIS being created. Some of the language ISIS was using in their documentation lines up, just the fact that they're calling themselves Islamic State. That was a specific term that Taqiyuddin Nabhani used in his first books related to the Khilafah, right? I mean, it's such a specific word, rather than, many other terms that you could, you know what I'm saying?
I think the problem is, bro, that Muazzam Beg said this to me. He said something very interesting to me, and stuck with me for many years. He said that us as a Muslim Ummah being in a crisis, we're living in a time kind of that's never happened before, in a sense that we've never had any kind of Islamic, if you want to call it, umbrella, whether it's a khilafah or a dynasty or etc., etc. This has only really happened after the fall of the Ottoman Empire over the last kind of 100 years. So none of us has really lived under a khilafah. None of us really seen what khilafah looks like or Islamic State looks like. So we have this kind of utopian image of what that is. And what I found with a lot of people is that they say they want Islam and they proclaim that they want Islam, but when you actually get to the nuts and bolts of it, they don't really know what that actually means and entails. And because they've been sold a certain version, what ends up happening is you have these kind of extremist kind of strains, and people are exploited. And that's definitely what I feel happened in this case, is that I think one of the things that's very important, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask those, people of knowledge if you don't know. And when you look at a lot of these groups, they don't have any people of knowledge. They don't have real scholars behind them.
But one thing that was also exposed is that, how we always say, on the far end of the spectrum, on the left end of the spectrum, or the liberal end of the spectrum, people are willing to compromise their faith for the greater benefit. But we also saw that in these proponents of the Khilafah in the extremist versions, like, they were willing to sacrifice their Islamic beliefs and ideals for the greater good. Like, they made this argument that you said earlier, this maslaha that we can kill for the greater benefit of society. So they did the same thing, but on the other end of the extreme that they accuse liberals do. So we found out that Islam and its principles there's a certain middle ground, a quality that accepts people for who they are, has a compassion and justice and a perfect marriage of all these things together. And that's what I think we learned, that we learned how to make the distinction between this far end, both ends of the spectrum, essentially. And I want your thoughts on that.
I think one of the things that a lot of us brothers say here that I kind of left, we said that ISIS helped us to really understand our aqidah better, because we'd always read about kind of Khawarij in the books and heard about them, but we actually saw them real life, and we witnessed these people. So it kind of cemented us on our understanding. I mean, I still have ISIS fanboys messaging me whenever I say anything anti-ISIS. People still message me and say, you don't know and whatever, and I'm like, where are you taking your source from? I was on the ground when these people were at their peak. I've sat with people that you probably dream of, and that you look up to. These people, we had dealings with them trying to save people from their grasp. So I think, it's an interesting conversation, and especially you guys had Yasser Qadi on one of your podcasts, and now with Sheikh Yasser, I don't agree with everything he says. I think sometimes one of my qualms with him, and maybe I'm going to get stick for him, and some of the du'at in America is that sometimes they can be more American and patriotic than Muslims sometimes.
Sure.
And I feel that that's because they haven't kind of been to those conflict zones. But there's something that I do agree with Sheikh Yasser on, and that's the issue of Najdi Da'wah. And it's, we're going to get into some intricacies of Aqidah and stuff here, but Najdi Da'wah and its kind of dangers. I mean, when I was out in the beginning,
can you just briefly explain what Najdi Da'wah is, just for the uninitiated?
Yeah.
Say again, sorry, I didn't get your question, it just cut out there.
For the uninitiated, can you just explain what Najdi Da'wah is?
So basically, Najd is, these mustalahat, these terminologies are kind of like thrown out there, but I'll be more specific in regards to kind of what I mean when I'm talking about Najdi Dawah. I'm talking about those people who, some might call them Wahhabis or followers of Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, and that kind of mindset, which is, predominantly comes from kind of Saudi Arabia. Nowadays, we have a trend of people that say they're Salafis, but they're not Najdis or Wahhabis. But one of the reasons, I'm one of those people that when I was in the UK, I studied like Usul al-Thalatha, Kitab al-Tawheed, and all of these kind of books. And that was something that was just like a standard issue kind of thing, But when I came to Syria and I started seeing the way, for example, the Arba'in Nawaqid, the 40 nullifiers of Islam was being taught to kids, especially within the ranks of ISIS and other groups, I was really perturbed. I was like, why are you bemused, or why are you baffled when you see so much takfir and people getting killed, when you're teaching young kids the 40 nullifiers or 40 things that take you out of the fold of Islam, and they don't even know the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. So we saw this firsthand, where literally there was a time when maybe ISIS was strong, where people literally come up to you and say, Erdogan kafir, Mursi kafir, and basically that was the kind of question to test whether you are a Muslim or not.
So
and if you
they replaced Ain Allah with Mursi kafir or Erdogan kafir. Essentially,
real.
No, but so I just want to say this though. So look, I think there's an issue here that we have to speak about. I've heard a lot of people talk about the Najdi Dawah and the Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. And what happened? And here's the thing: the main point that I wanted to bring is that people have always been able to use materials the way they want to use it. Right? There are different factions, and of course, there's certain wisdoms in teaching kids at certain ages different things. Right? You don't just lay. I mean, I'm not going to, talk about, for example, sex with, a 5-year-old. Right? There's no need for it at that time. It's not the information is bad or it's incorrect, but there's no need for it. The level of understanding and wisdom is not there yet. And likewise, there's certain understandings of, for example, what are the nullifiers of faith? These are things that come after a certain ground level fundamental understanding has taken place. And I think, but what I wanted to get to is this point here. I think ISIS was not just sure, maybe some of the Wahhabi Dawah, maybe some of the Najdi Dawah had an issue in a hand in this, but there were people who are not from them that also joined in. And the issue is, and we're speaking about people that came from the Caucasus, people that came from, other areas too that were not from this Najdi Dawah, right? I mean, they joined in. Saddam's former... Izzuddin ad-Duri, and anyways, the point being is that there are other factions, and what was this? I believe that a lot of this it was born out of this reaction to aggression that was taking place inside of these countries for many years internally, and even from foreign elements like other foreign militaries. And that coupled with the young generation who grew up watching videos of Al-Aqsa being stormed, or the Afghan Mujahideen war in Afghanistan, seeing Bosnia, seeing these things and saying, hey, what are you doing for the Ummah? They and then hearing the stories of the heroes of the Sahaba, it's like how they went to battle. They kind of glorified this and said, this is our time. That's why when I watch ISIS videos, I said, these are kids that want to reenact the time of the Sahaba. Like they're going out on their horses, they're making videos, high quality, like they're just doing, that they want to behead someone. I mean, they've gotten so far into this.
I agree with you to a certain extent, but at the same time, you've got to understand that I'm not going to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but there's think tanks, bro. There's, Marakas Abhath, think tanks and Western kind of forces that have agendas that are taking place. Every single person is here on the ground in Syria. Every country has, people on the ground here in Syria. And I believe personally, when it comes to this issue, yeah, you're right. Iraq, the people, what they saw in Iraq, created this kind of bloodthirstiness inside them, maybe in the Caucasus and etc. But what I'm talking about is that people using a certain rhetoric or a certain manhaj to justify and propel these kind of acts. For example, when it came to torturing people, burning people and drowning them and all this kind of stuff, you have to understand, you can't just say, okay, it was kids that were watching movies and stuff. Yeah, that existed, that element existed, but at the same time, there was people who were bringing proofs or so-called proofs and giving fatwa and saying to these kids that, yeah, you can go and do this, do you understand? And I believe that a lot of that was kind of externally funded. I believe that ISIS, from what I saw with my own eyes, a lot of the support that they had was kind of external. I mean, even Mosul, the fall of Mosul, anybody that knows anything about military affairs knows that Mosul, a massive city like that, is impossible for it to fall just like that with 300 or 400 fighters. And that was when they announced their caliphate. So, I mean, for me, there was a lot of things.
There was that too, the talks, but there's also people say, well, you know what? Yes, you have a legitimate excuse, at least not you specific talks, but the Syrian resistance in general has a legitimate excuse with ISIS disrupting their resistance, but there was plenty of infighting among the Syrian resistance that if they had bandied together and they squashed their problems sooner rather than later, they may have overcome a lot of these issues, but they were slow to act on so many different issues, and also it seems like they weren't able to see the forest from the trees, where they couldn't see that the United States and the Western powers were managing this conflict, meaning they were trying to create a perpetual conflict situation where they're just managing certain areas of the country, and they're in effect just giving enough ammunition or weapons to win the next battle, but then they wouldn't give enough to win the war. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, but look, what you need to understand is the beginning of the revolution and how it began. I want to kind of contextualize this and help people to visualize what actually happened. So in the beginning, when the revolution began, it was like, okay, you've got Murtada and Sim and Sheikh Amir, and they're from a certain area in a certain city. These guys have called all of their guys, and they basically got together, taken over the local police station, taken the weapons, and they basically taken over their neighborhood. Okay, then this happened in another city, in another place. This happened in the countryside areas kind of fell because the regime just left them because there wasn't so much to kind of resources, or they weren't high value things to protect. But it kind of happened like this. So what happened was, in the beginning, when you had, everybody was called the Free Syrian Army. So you had people that were just culturally Syrians, had a good fitrah. They were saying, we want hurriya, we want freedom, and we want to get rid of oppression. They didn't have an Islamic understanding. They were saying we want Islam, but some of them maybe didn't even pray Salah. Then you had other areas where maybe guys were possibly more practicing like yourselves. They had more of an understanding because their families were in Ikhwan and had been persecuted in the 80s. So it was very kind of different. Different areas had all of these, a melting pot of different ideas, different understandings, and all of this kind of stuff. Then as the conflict started kind of gradually becoming militarized, what happened was certain groups emerged. So one of the first Islamic groups was a group called Ahrar al-Sham. Now Ahrar al-Sham was notably Ikhwan, but they had a real leadership of thinkers. Now early in the conflict, they had a meeting, an underground meeting, and basically they were killed in the most mysterious of circumstances. A lot of them were students of knowledge. A lot of them were guys that had, experience, and basically their whole leadership was taken out in one were rare. Everybody on the ground believes that
you got cut off, but they
were taken out in one what?
One bombing?
They were taken out in one chemical strike, so they were all gassed. So everybody was like, "This is nothing we've seen here before." Everyone believed that this had happened.
Is this one of the early the usage of chemical attacks?
Yeah, but the thing with this one was that nobody knew who did it. Their meeting was infiltrated, and basically these guys who were all thinkers, people that were more in the middle, they were all taken out. And many people of knowledge in the beginning of this conflict were taken out by airstrikes, drone strikes, etc., etc. So the real, if you want to call it, leadership and the natural kind of element of ilm, knowledge, was taken out. That's one of the reasons why people started to get, easily swayed or taken out. And
there was a makeshift imam. Yeah.
I mean, if you take out people's leaders, most of the people are just awam, lay people. They have a good fitrah. So if some of these guys come along and they're preaching a certain message, they'll be like, okay, this sounds good. This looks like Islam. Let's do it. Do you understand?
Yeah, you're creating a power vacuum, and you're allowing certain people to be the leadership of Islamic interpretation, and just be leaders in general.
Yes, but I wanted to ask you one thing. Did you ever know of any notable sheikh that was advising ISIS when they were around on the ground? Was there anyone that was notable, that was someone that had a real knowledge, or a sheikh, ijazah, anyone that you know of that was on the ground that actually was advising them?
I wouldn't want to comment on something like that, because just for fear of putting other people in issues. I mean, obviously I'm in a certain situation. I'm in Syria, so I don't really want to. But there were certain people that were, and may Allah bless them and accept from them. But like I said, people were, there were attempts. You got to understand, the Middle East, Bilad al-Sham, is a place. Look, when my citizenship was revoked, or I was deprived of my citizenship, I asked for a open hearing. This is one of the things I spoke about on the BBC. And one of the reasons that they refused, the British government refused to basically give me an open trial, and they wanted to have it in secret courts, is because they said ground. So that
So
basically,
Sorry, you broke up. They
you
said
broke up.
what?
They said what?
they said that they would,
Whoops, you broke up again.
admitting that they had British spies, like, you know, James Bond types.
Oh.
You know?
Oh, they had secret evidence, basically.
Yeah, because no,
They
the,
had-
the evidence would
yeah.
expose them, their efforts on the ground, so they didn't want to then have it publicly known to everybody else that they have efforts
Yeah.
on the ground.
So yeah, so this is, you know, apparently the so-called evidence that they had, but one of the reasons was, again, that they didn't want to. So my point is that all of the major powers had forces on the ground. Do you understand? And I mean, if you read some of the papers from think tanks on Syria, Western non-Muslim research think tanks, they know these groups inside out. They know their way of thinking. They know their leaderships. You know, they have detailed files on all of these people. So I mean, everybody wants a piece of, you know.
So my thought is that I believe that these people have these inclinations, and these Western or foreign elements, they or even domestically, they are aware, but they allow certain things to happen and don't allow certain things to happen. They try to find the silver lining, because, you know, governments and things like this, they plan not days in advance, not weeks or months, decades. They think about what's the outcome of this going to be. You know, how can we manipulate this? What can we turn in the future? And so I would definitely agree that there's knowledge of what these groups are trying to do, and they make a decision whether we allow it to happen now and we deal with it later, or we just deal with it now. And they calculate this like a chess game.
Of course, and that's why.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. I mean, before I even came to Syria, and I was going to lots of different high conflict zones, I would always get stopped under anti-terror legislation. And Schedule 7 stops. They would always ask me the same kind of questions. Which mosque do you pray at? What do you think of Sayyid Qutb, etc., 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 right? So these people, they know our Aqidah. They know our Aqidah better than most Muslims. So when it comes to supporting certain extremist ideologies, you think that they can't do that? Of course they can. I mean, I read a really interesting book in prison called Manufacturing Consent by Noam Chomsky. Very good book. And it speaks about how the US, in places like Ecuador and many of the Latin American states, you know, basically funded, you know, the Contras and these kind of terrorist groups and hand over all the resources to America. So why would it be any different in Muslim lands, in the Middle East?
Right. So let's talk about your because I think Sheikh Amr alluded to this earlier. Let's talk about your interview with the BBC and this is when the British government has decided to revoke your citizenship or have a trial to revoke your citizenship. Is that what it was, or can you explain that for some of the American audience who wasn't really familiar with that?
Yeah. So basically, in 2017, the British government basically gave a deprivation order. So that's where the Home Secretary basically puts in an order to have a citizen's citizenship basically removed.
Yeah.
Stripped. Okay. So majority of people that happened to, they didn't appeal, or, you know, they were silent. For me, it was never a case of wanting to come back, but one of the goals of us doing the Are We British campaign was to kind of show Muslims in the West that, look, you may feel that you're British, but you've been sold a lie. Because I was born and brought up in England, you know, I was always sold the thing that we're all equal under the law, we have an equal right to vote, we have an equal right to, you know, education and all that kind of stuff. But when it came to citizenship, just because my parents are of, you know, Pakistani nationality, that I could have my citizenship stripped without being found guilty of any crime, just on a suspicion. So like my situation is that I haven't been found guilty in any court of law. Alhamdulillah, I had a really good legal team. May Allah bless them, the Muslims and the non-Muslims that helped me. And a lot of politicians in the UK that was supporting constitutional, it's racist. Because there were other people, there were people that joined ISIS, were ISIS fighters, but because they were British white, they weren't stripped of their citizenship.
Oh,
so this is one of the points.
I didn't know that.
This is one of the points. Yeah, this is one of the points that I made, is that how can they join actually prescribed terrorist organizations? Then you had other people who joined the PKK, and then you've got people who go and fight for the IDF in Israel. So I was like, okay, how are all these people going and coming back, and me, because I'm Pakistani, or there was other brothers who were Bengali and stuff, we're being stripped. So our goal was to kind of say to the Muslims in the UK, look, wake up, you know, you kind of think that you're British, but at the end of the day, you're at a lower tier than everybody else. You're a second-class citizen in Britain. You've been sold a lie. So yeah, my thing kind of was in court for a few years. I had anonymity on my case in the beginning. Then when the whole Shamima Begum thing happened, we decided at that point that we would remove the anonymity. And in the
sorry, you broke up right with it when you decided to remove anonymity. Yeah. So
yeah. So basically, what the anonymity means is that
no, we know that, but I mean, you broke up at that point.
Yeah. So basically, in the beginning, I didn't want to take the anonymity off because obviously I didn't want it to affect the aid work that we're doing. Because obviously, sadly, Muslims are afraid, and yeah, there's some justification for that, but in a lot of times I believe that as Muslims living in the West, we need to have more backbone. We need to stand together, otherwise we're going to get eaten up. So this is why one of our goals was, when the whole Shamima Begum thing happened, and it was such a big story, I came out at the same time because they were trying to paint a picture, the British government, that everyone who's been stripped of their citizenship is an ISIS fighter. So when I came out and I said, no, I've never been part of a banned group. Even the letter that was sent to me never said I've been involved in terrorism, never said I've been part of a prescribed group. So why am I being persecuted? Why am I being painted?
But you carry a gun. You know?
Wait, how did they?
Gun. That's what the issue was.
No,
but
how
did
they?
Gun. That's what they said to him.
Yeah, but hold on. How did you get this letter? Do you mean your home address in the UK? Is that what? Is that? I mean, how did you get this letter?
Basically, I just got a letter. My mum and dad called me up one day. They were like, we've got some bad news.
So,
like,
man,
okay.
these people are such conniving, because that's the worst thing a parent can read. Like, oh my God, there's something like, especially like, Daisy parents, when you're involved with this, like they get a letter from the government. Oh my God, what happened here? You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
You can imagine, bro.
Yeah.
You can imagine that kind of letter, bro.
Yeah, but I mean, no, I was just curious. I mean, I'm wondering if they had someone meet you in Syria and be like, "Hey, you're gone. You can't come back," or if it was a formal letter sent to the house.
It was a formal letter from the Home Secretary to my home address saying that I've been stripped of my or I'm being deprived. A deprivation order has been put in, because at that point it hadn't been deprived.
I'm confused. So what do you do if you're in the middle of transit? Like, what do you do? Like, I mean, let's say you happen to be traveling back to the UK at that time. They would deny you entry?
Yeah. I mean, it happened to loads of people. I mean, it's happened to many other people. They just got stranded in Pakistan, in different places, wherever they went on holiday, and they just basically got left.
I will say this though. I think this is a
No. I just think it's funny that they can do that. Why don't they do that to British or Pakistani citizens who are visiting the UK? Say, hey, we're stripping you of your Pakistani citizenship, and you're stuck in the UK now. We're not taking you back.
Yeah. This is Pakistan should strip them.
It's just an air of like smug British superiority.
Yeah.
Well, look, if we're going to talk about the Americans, I mean, the Americans.
No, I'm not saying I'm not. No,
at least the Queen sends us a letter and she says, you have been removed. I mean, in America, you guys have like kill lists. Bilal Kareem was on like some drone kill list, and then people that have just been. They're not polite enough to say to you. Listen,
no, they're not polite. No, but I mean, Americans are down to business. But I will say this much though: Americans at least know they can't strip you of your citizenship. If you were to come back in, I mean, they may hate you, they may not like you. I'm saying it doesn't mean dead or not, but I'm saying if you make it back here at the border, knock on the door, you gotta let me in. I'm here. I'm gonna duck and dive, run through the alleys, and I'm back, guys. You know what I mean? But the thing is that
can you see? Right?
Salute the no. I mean, I think what I think really happened though was that there was I think legal prosecutors. I think Britain found out, because I think this is what it was. There was no secret that there were a lot of brothers who went, younger brothers who went from the UK to Syria and other places, and that didn't look very good for the British government. Like, okay, what's really happening inside? Is there, especially conservatives coming up there saying, oh, is there this creeping Sharia? Is this creeping, Islamicism in London? And I think they found a loophole in very old British law in terms of who can really be granted citizenship, like in terms of like who is really truly British and who's not, who's an Englishman and who's not. And I think they manipulate that loophole in order to. And I'm not denying that it's because they looked at you like or Muslims as lesser than them, but they had to find a legal justification for that. And I think they digged into some old like loopholes that were there and utilized that to meet their objective. And I mean, it's sad that it happens, but I mean, at the end of the day, I think the point still stands that, you know, there are people in government that view people who are not, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. They view them as lesser people.
Here's what I'll tell you, Mort. The history has shown that whenever Americans or even the West in general take away rights from Muslims in this respect by stripping them of citizenship, who was the first? They started taking people's videos down in YouTube. They were all Muslim. They started peeling away.
AAA.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it, but
yeah.
Basically they were pulling the first violation of freedom of speech. Essentially, they're doing to Muslims. But what's happening now? We're seeing it's being done to their own citizens.
Yeah.
Okay. So while they might be gloating that, oh, you know what, we got Tox and Bilal and Shamima's citizenship revoked. Guess what?
Alex Jones is coming next.
Yeah, your friends, like people, your political opponents, people you disagree with, will be next. People who may be anti-vaxxers or just regular folks who may have some fringe opinion, they will start.
You're right.
But you know, to be fair though, when people mention Shamima and I'm just trying to be fair here, I think Tox's story and hers are way different. Meaning that one was an actual support. Came out in support of ISIS.
Shamima was 14 years old, man. She's a kid.
Well, I get it. I'm not saying.
Listen,
I'm not saying that they're just, but I'm saying the story is different. Meaning that she was someone who vocally supported ISIS. I'm not saying that she's rational enough to make a decision or not. Not my prerogative here. I'm saying that the story, the narrative is very different here. Tox was never, my knowledge, he's never vocally supported ISIS or any of these groups. He was just simply there on aid missions. And so the notion that you lump them together because they went to the same geographic region that happens to be Muslim and going through a civil war, the fact that you lump people who vocalize two very different things together, opposite things as a matter of fact, together, is problematic. It shows the insincerity in...
But I think, again, that's the agenda as well, though, bro. Look, you got to understand that, of course, there's an attempt. Do you think that the West wants Muslims to be actively engaged in helping other Muslims? Do you understand? So this is an easy way of basically saying to everybody, okay, you want to go out there and you want to do these things, then, you could basically be saying goodbye to everything that you kind of know and love.
Yeah.
So, but for us, one of the bigger messages is, and for me, alhamdulillah, I'm not a person that's crying, oh, that's my... Alhamdulillah, to be honest, it was a big barakah for me, and I believe that inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to open many doors. I don't need a passport. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to move around this earth, then he will make that happen for us. But it's a case of, I think that the bigger issue is that many Muslims that are living in the West, I feel that they have an important role to play in supporting the Muslim Ummah, and they have many resources when it comes to education, knowledge, wealth, which they can use to support the Ummah. But they have to have two things. One, they have to be, have a level of, we say in Arabic, himma. They have a desire or a motivation to do this, and then they've got to have some bravery and be willing to sacrifice. And I think in the years when Islam or empires are peaks and troughs, as they say, when Islam's whenever it's been on the rise, it's been off the back of sacrifice. Muslims that were willing to sacrifice for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, you know what, we're going to do what it takes to, try and make the situation better, whatever that is. So yeah, that's what I feel that the bigger message is. You've got some of these liberals in the West, Muslims that are, sadly a lot of what they say is actually, kufr. It's
Of
against,
course.
clear kufr. A lot of what they say.
I mean,
Um,
unfortunately, we'll have to open like the whole liberal Muslim topic later on because it's such a wide topic, and we won't stop if we get started. Like, it just But I did want to say.
Sorry, 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead.
He mentioned a critical thing that I want to just touch on.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to come back to.
What do you suggest Muslims in the West do? What happened? He disappeared off the screen.
He said, "Wait a second, he grabbed some water."
Oh, nice.
He's grabbing some water.
Would you like some water?
Oh, don't they have that in Saudi Arabia too? That blue bottle?
All the blue bottles, bro.
No, I
It's
swear.
just a regular, but yeah.
Yeah, it's
Well,
Arabic.
no, but that's something else, bro.
Oh.
Don't relax.
I just saw the Arabic.
Yeah,
and
I know. Prejudice. I
That's
get
the
it, I
only
get it.
country I've
I
been
get
to.
it.
He's worse than the
Ignorant.
Brits. He's worse than the British government, bro.
Tox, do you know did you know I'm from Medina?
Deserts of Medina, not just Medina. The deserts of Medina.
Again, guys, please don't do this, bro.
Yeah, but I was born in Ramadan too.
Sim thinks he might be the Mahdi.
I didn't say that. I did not make that claim, Mort.
He pronounced it Mehndi.
Don't tell me you're Najdi, bro, and you're gonna be after me.
No, but anyways, you were saying, what do you think?
No,
Muslims should-
but what do you suggest Muslims in the West do now that some of these possibilities like the revocation of citizenship, real like consequences for them if they travel to Syria. But what can they do other than giving as much money as they can towards Syrian charities and hopefully inshallah by the end of the show we'll get to who you suggest people send money to. But what do you suggest in general about what kind of activism should we be doing?
Okay, I think as an ummah, we have to look at long-term solutions. One of the problems that we face is that many people, they're looking for short-term fix. They see people getting killed in Palestine and then they they get on a hype, they want to go on a demonstration and then that's it. I'm not saying demonstrations are bad, but what needs to happen is that we need to think long-term, like many of these think tanks do. And I believe that those long-term solutions are what? First of all, we have to work on building institutions. Different kinds of institutions, whether that's Islamic institutions to make sure that we're educating Muslims properly, whether that's financial institutions. Sometimes we can't even transfer money. I'll give you an example. In the UK, certain Zionist-run banks will close Muslim charities accounts down for no reason if they're supporting Palestine. And the Muslim charity sector in Britain counts for 120 to 150 million a year. It's the Muslim community is the most charitable community. It's a minority community in the UK, but yet it's the most giving. So now imagine those Muslim charities put their differences aside when it comes to whatever your politics and whatever you understand is, but you all use these banks. Now, if one of these banks closes you down, if you all take your business elsewhere, they're going to be forced to work with you. When 120 million, 150 million is going to go elsewhere, they're going to be like, okay, hold up, wait a minute. So institutions, media institutions, like what you guys are doing, sadly, us Muslims today, we can't even sell our own narrative. That's why Live Updates from Syria, the kind of the media outlet that we have, the channel that we have on socials, one of the goals for us was that we want to show people what's going on in the conflict in Syria firsthand, by just normal people on the ground telling you, look, this is what's happening and this is the situation. So many different types of institutions. I believe that these are the kind of long-term solutions. What can I do today for the next 10 years, 15 years, that's going to help the ummah in the future? And the reason why I came to this thinking is, I remember the first time I saw a girl, a small young girl, baby die in front of my eyes. She died in my arms. And subhanAllah, it was a coalition airstrike, okay, that was apparently targeting some terrorists in Syria. And I remember at that moment in time feeling so powerless and saying to myself, subhanAllah, look, this unmanned aircraft has just killed this family, taken out the whole family, and this baby girl, and I can still remember her face now, just died in my arms. And we are powerless, we can't do anything. And it got me thinking, saying that, okay, I can't stop this oppression today, but what can I start doing today so that in 5, 10, 15, 20 years time, this doesn't happen to other Muslims? Because I know today I'm never going to be able to stop it. So this comes to lots of other institutions, lobbies. think tanks, lobbies, for example. Now, if Muslims, affluent Muslims, and we don't have a lack of, financial resources in the ummah, Dubai Expo, $7 billion or some nonsense like that. We don't have a lack of, finance in the ummah, but what we have is a lack of thinkers. So if people started doing things, they don't have to come to Syria. You don't have to come to Syria and be here on the ground, but you need to build institutions so that tomorrow, when you want to help the ummah, that you're in a position to even put pressure on, governments. For example, now you've got this normalization of ties in Bahrain and in Dubai and all of these places, but yet there's no way to put pressure on these governments. Imagine now all of the Muslims in the West said, okay, we're taking our business away from Dubai. We're not going to go there anymore. That's not even on the level of coming to Syria and being under bombs and all that kind of stuff and maybe losing your citizenship. That's, to be honest, a decision you can make with your conscience from home. But the reality is, sadly, like the Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith, that, a time will come when nations will eat from the ummah, like, people sitting around a table eating from a feast. And the Sahaba, they said to the Prophet ﷺ, why is that? Is that because we will be, small in number? And the Prophet ﷺ said, no, you will be, large in number, but you'll be like the foam, the froth of the sea. And he said, and that the reason for that is because people will have a wahan in their hearts. And when the Sahaba asked the Prophet ﷺ, what is this wahan? And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Sheikh. He said that this is a love of the dunya and a hate of death. And I think sadly that's what's happened to a lot of Muslims today, is that we struggle to sacrifice because we love this dunya so much and it's entered our hearts. Maybe I shouldn't speak about everybody generally, but if we can't do stuff like, boycotting Dubai and some of these countries who are, in essence, we cannot even filter, for example, you were speaking about the conflict on the ground in Syria and groups fighting each other and all that kind of stuff. When we look at it on a global level, when you look at the ummah, there's certain countries that are kind of part and parcel of exacerbating the oppression against Muslims, yet we go there for holidays, yet we go there and, spend money and invest and all that kind of stuff. So I think for us, I believe that, again, many solutions. I've thrown lots of stuff out there. Media, institutions, invest in Muslim countries. One of my messages is, you're not really American and you're not really British. Okay, I'm not a hater of the West. I respect the fact that there's certain freedoms in the West. Like for me to be able to come on BBC as a dissident or a detractor and criticize the government, bravo, take my hat off to them. But at the same time, that's not who you really are. When you're a Muslim, you're either British first and Muslim second, or you're either American first and Muslim second, or you're never going to really be accepted in that society. And a lot of Muslims need to wake up to that and start looking at places to invest within Muslim lands. And people are going to say, where do we go and what can we do? If you don't get up, part of the French, off your ass and try and look for some solutions, then, no one's going to come and hand you victory, in your hands. You gotta work for it. So sorry, bro.
On that note, though, on that note, that's why a lot of people are considering. Now, I'm not saying it is the most ideal place, but they're considering Turkey. They're saying, listen, you know what? They're offering an incentive for citizenship programs for people to buy property, and you can get passports when you move there. And I mean, people are considering options now, but maybe it is an option for the future. Allahu Alam. But what I guess where we're going with this is that it seems to me that the answer is that we need more global and long term. It seems to me that Muslims don't have this long term vision. Everything is reactionary. Something happens in Syria, donate money. Tsunami happens. Flood happens in Pakistan, donate money, but never are planning on how to deal with it before it comes, right? The long-term vision, and that's partly probably because we have bad leadership. We don't have political stability.
80% of it is
right. I mean, it's probably because of that as well too. But there's still people who are interested, people who are on the ground, like yourselves, who can direct us to think about, well, what things should we be thinking about long-term? Like, what are some of the initiatives that we could possibly invest in or start in? I love the idea about lobbying. I think I tell Muslims in America, don't vote. I mean, at least in the federal election, just create a huge fund that lobbies people to make politicians act on your behalf. Pay them. I mean,
Yeah, I know.
this is the name of the game, right? Money.
Utilize the system to your advantage.
Right.
But of course, like I said, you've got people that would kind of, you've got different strains out there that maybe possibly don't believe in that. But I think that we have to start thinking out of the box. We can't have this same kind of reactionary thinking where anytime a crisis. I mean, look, man, you guys said you're like in your 40s. I mean, you've
Early
been seeing
40s.
the Palestinian conflict.
Wait. We need to make something clear here.
Early 40s.
Very early
Anyways,
40.
go ahead.
Like barely, we just hit 40. All right, talk.
Yeah,
Like,
I
I
feel bad. He was
probably
about to say something important.
look, I will. I'm probably in my 40s. Okay, I don't care about these.
Early 40s. You're gonna tell someone you're in your late 40s?
I'm
dude?
more.
I don't care. Late 40s,
You're
mid
not.
40s. I'm in my
Anyways,
40s.
Sorry, you were about to say something
Don't be
important.
shy.
It looks good. That's the most important thing, Masha. It looks good, man.
Look, this is how
alhamdulillah, bro.
the brother Tox married, mashallah, 3 times, and he just kind of, puts the other guys on. Hey, they're a little bit older. You don't want to entertain these other suitors. They're in their 40s.
Sure.
Look at a strapping young lad like me.
In the middle
Early-
of this crazy, in the middle of this whole thing, we're speaking about progress and future. He's thinking about a second wife.
No, I'm
This is
I'm
his idea
not.
of
I'm not.
progress.
No,
Bro,
don't
you're
get
gonna
me in
him
trouble.
You're
Don't
gonna
you
get him
get me in trouble.
Why would you do that?
Why would
More.
you bring it
I'm
up?
gonna murder you.
I mean, I'm very pro.
Polygamy? Yeah. Alhamdulillah, we all are.
You guys want to go there or not?
Yeah, well, no, I think we are. I mean, I'm pro polygamy. I just don't think that everyone is capable of doing it right now. I mean, I just think that,
Agreed.
I mean, if you are capable, alhamdulillah. I mean, my grandfather was polygamous, so it's not a different thing for me, but people have an issue with that, right? I mean, but that's a whole different issue. Again, that's something to do with to tackle with the liberal ideas, right, about equality and all this nonsense that we have, but let's not take it down that route because of Sim. We came here because of his track-mindedness on polygamy.
I just wanted to issue a clarification regarding the age. That's all I was saying. And then now Mort had like a.
No, but then Tox has a second wife. He tells the guys that he's a little bit older. And what am I to the wife?
Don't you think?
Let me contextualize it for you because my opinion on this matter is actually very radical and people possibly don't like it. I believe that this actually has a connection to the long-term solutions that we're talking about. So I believe that as an ummah, in many parts of the world, we have been pacified, demasculinized. And I believe that when we look at the Sahaba, who are the best generation, it's very difficult to find a Sahabi that wasn't married to more than one woman. Now, some people would say that that's the urf, the culture of their time, etc., etc. But one thing that it shows is that you had men who were capable of, how do you say in Arabic, yudir, basically
Conduct
managing
themselves,
multiple households. And that takes a certain level of, of man. It's not easy. I'm not saying I'm the perfect person. A'udhu billah, may Allah forgive me if that came across in an arrogant kind of way. But I feel that, yes, it's something that is important. Look, one of the things when the Ottoman Empire was destroyed, one of the things that was banned was polygamy. So again, there's been a systematic war on Islam and Islamic principles that, kind of masculinize us. And, I mean, Khabib's one of those examples. And why did so many people, even though it's a haram sport and all that kind of stuff, why did so many people have this kind of rush towards Khabib? Why did so many people have this rush towards Ertugrul? Because it was a case of, okay, we don't see these kind of leaders and these kind of figures in our community, in media and that kind of stuff.
We miss it.
Because they moved a certain way. When they walked, they said, I mean, yeah, granted we all have shortcomings, but they never, I mean, it wasn't like this thing where they were being humble and meek. Like, Khabib would come out and say, I say, alhamdulillah, you don't like it, but I say, alhamdulillah. Like, stuff like this makes people, and you can see in the character, even people that commented about him, like, he's humble. He doesn't show off. He doesn't talk a lot. Even other women that would comment. There was a UFC, I watch UFC a lot, so I'm a big MMA fan. There was a female fighter. The whole UFC was up in arms because Khabib said that, you know what, I don't think women should be fighting in the UFC. I don't like to see women fighting, right? Yeah. And everyone's uproar. What about equality? What about this? What about that? This one UFC fighter says, listen, you have to understand something. He never came to me individually and said this. And I've seen him train at AK, and he's very respectful to women. You have to understand the mindset of these people. They view women to be something to be protected. They don't want their daughter going out and fighting and their women going out and fighting. So they do it in a form of respect, not disrespect. And so for me, I don't have an issue with it. That's what she said. She said, as long as he doesn't come for me personally and tell me what to do, I respect it. I can understand where he's coming from. That culture is different. Those people are different. And I think people were able to see that he's so principled that itself shines through. People respect people that stand their ground and say what they believe in rather than just kind of, cowtail and bend in the wind. Because then you never know what that person is. He's inauthentic.
Preach on, my brother. I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, my point was the fact that because he's unapologetic about things that he believes in, things that go against the status quo. Even recently, he said something about ring girls and then being useless, and there was another uproar, etc., etc. But the point I'm making is that, for example, I would never be apologetic about the fact that I have more than one wife, even if, the West don't like it. And I would encourage brothers to engage in polygamy, of course, in the prophetic way, not doing it secretly, not hiding it, not doing it in a way like, alhamdulillah, my parents know. Before I got married a second time, I let them know. Before I got married a second time, my first wife, she met the sister that I was going to marry, etc., etc. So if it's done in the right way, then it's important. And I believe as an ummah, I mean, there's so many reasons why we should engage in it.
There's better kind. Allah enriches people too through marriage. So I mean, there's the ayah in the Quran is clear about it. So but we want to talk about, before we get too late. We want to get to the bulk of it now. The imprisonment, the prison years, the prison days.
Not that it's a form of entertainment, but it's people should realize what you actually went through.
Yeah, that's why.
We're not saying this and I just want to put a disclaimer out there.
Who in their right mind would see his prison?
Are you exposing your own mentality again?
Is it entertainment?
What I mean is
he's on polygamy, you're on torture. Am I the only normal one here?
Guys, this is a little serious, please. So
I love the sign in the back that says "Beware of Arabian horse." I love it.
Who has that?
It's right there behind you. Hey, goof in the middle.
I love how he looks around, his confused face.
Because I never actually read those signs.
He just goes like this all the time.
One brother.
I see is the halal one. Yeah. Anyways, no, check this out. The thing is that it's not like it's not exciting, but we should know what our brothers have went through. Our brothers are a sign of Allah for us also. Our brothers are people that when even they go into prison, they actually come out even stronger, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about those people in the Quran. Contrary to some popular belief that when you go in, you come out and they want to show that, when you went in, you were a certain way. When you came out, you were a certain way. But you continue doing what you're doing. It didn't stop you, right? And you were actually very, very detailed of some of the incidences that happened to you, right? But how did all of that start in the first place? Because you were originally, our confusing thing was when we had, what's her name? Yvonne Ridley. She was telling us about Abdul Karim and yourself. She spoke about you guys and she told us that, and I was confused because I wasn't following the Syrian issue as much as I should have. And I was like, wait, why are they under prison with people who are actually Muslims? And it's not the Syrian regime. So that's what threw me off. Really, that's when I was really confused. So how did all that happen that you wouldn't expect that somebody who's supposed to be a freedom fighter is now holding you in prison?
Yeah, I mean, subhanAllah, it's one of those things. Like some of the stuff we spoke about at the beginning of the podcast, that sadly, what happens is that as conflicts, carry on and some of the knowledge is lost, you have people that want to exploit the religion for their own personal gains. So myself and Brother Bilal, we had been kind of advising HTS, Hayat Tahrir Sham, for many years. People think that we just came out and spoke out against them and, we're trying to cause fitna and stuff like that. But what they don't understand is that our goal is never to try and expose the Muslims. But at the end of the day, like the Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith, that ansur akhaqa zaliman or mazluman, support your brother whether he is the oppressor or the oppressed. And the Sahaba asked the Prophet ﷺ, how can we do that if he is the oppressor? He said, by stopping him of his oppression. So for us, this was one of the things where we started to see that slowly, as this group began to take more and more power of different territories, they started, and being an Islamic group, they started to utilize the verses in the ways that they want to. And now, of course, being in the field of aid, there were certain issues surrounding myself where certain factions within HTS, they had taken, or tried to take aid and stuff. And we had certain altercations, and we had always managed to get it sorted by having elders or people of knowledge come in and sit down and broker. And alhamdulillah, that had been sorted. But, I was always of the opinion that, look, I am holding an amana, I'm muwakkal, and I'm not going to give it to anybody, any group, where we've always been neutral. We deal with sadaqah and zakah, and we're going to give it to those that need it. And if anyone has a problem with that, then over our dead bodies kind of thing. So that was some of the issues that were happening. Then obviously there was issues of, we were finding out of cases of torture. There was a case that Brother Bilal Abdul Karim covered about 2 years ago about a guy called Marwan Umki, who was basically tortured to death in this Islamic group, Hayat Tahrir Sham's prison. And so we advised the brothers, we tried to sit with them and we said, look guys, this is haram. How can this happen that someone is tortured? If you believe in capital punishment and his hukam, his verdict was that he needs to be killed, then okay, that's, something different. But now if this guy's been killed under torture, where is this in Islam? So that was a big sitting that we had. And after that, we had many sit downs trying to advise the brothers, getting scholars involved from outside, from inside. There's actually even a prisoners covenant that Brother Bilal, alongside some lawyers, got this prisoners covenant ratified by scholars outside that's been handed to them time and over again. And we just saw that things were getting worse, where I was having mothers every day saying, look, I haven't seen my son, please, can you arbitrate, and all of this kind of stuff. So we kind of became detractors. There was a case where a military leader in that group came and kidnapped a head of one of our refugee camps because of some dispute. Someone was being evicted from a camp. He was kidnapped and then he was beaten and tortured. So we got involved, and then basically Bilal did the story on that. After that, they punished their own guy, they put him in prison. But these kind of things were kind of like a knock to their pride. How can these guys be bringing this stuff and we're having to react in this way? And then ultimately it came to a point where, because they had basically fought all the other groups and taken power, then it became easy for them to kind of do what they wanted to do. And it came to a point where I was arrested, accused of all sorts of crazy stuff. They basically came with like 30 cars, guns, all sorts.
And this is all HTS. HTS arrested.
Yeah, because HTS, obviously at the time I didn't know. I thought I was getting kidnapped. So I've come out and I'm thinking, what the hell's going on here? I've started fighting these guys, and so I got gun butted, I got smashed, I got like a scar on my head. I don't know if you can see it. Where is it? It's here. Got gun butted in my head. My head was pouring with blood. And basically they were trying to like take me, and they couldn't take me, but I was losing a lot of blood. So then I was like, all right, fine. I kind of like, they couldn't even get me in the car. So I was like, look, khalas, if you lot are who you say you are, then I'll go with you, sort of thing. They got me in the car, took me, whatever. And then there was a big, alhamdulillah, kind of uproar in Syria. I expected that from outside the UK, because alhamdulillah, our work's always been so transparent. Alhamdulillah, many people have been supporting us. May Allah bless all the people who have supported us from day one. I expected that there would be that kind of uproar, especially because I've done a lot of media over the years, being like a kind of aid work out here. I've done like CNN, BBC, ITV, Channel 4. I've done most of the major news outlets, especially Aleppo and Ghouta and all these different stuff. So I expected that from outside, there would be, some kind of noise regarding my
Someone
arrest.
having your back from the
I
outside.
didn't expect that inside, that people will protest. And alhamdulillah, that was a big barakah and a blessing for myself to see that our work over these years hasn't been kind of, there's been fruits of it. Orphans and widows came out, and they protested. And that's the first time ever in the Syrian revolution. This is what many of my Syrian friends tell me, that the Syrian people ever came out for a foreigner, which was amazing. I mean, even when I was in prison, some of the guards, it kind of snuck to me, or other people that were getting arrested, they kind of, let me know, there's mass protests going on outside for your release and that kind of stuff, which kind of, motivated us. So I was let out after 25 days. And because of all the pressure from outside and inside, and I was basically let out on kind of, some guarantors came forward, signed for me to be released. And some of the conditions they basically put on me were that, and this is, to be honest, the first time I'm actually publicly speaking about this. But yeah, it's one of those things that I suppose eventually I had to speak about. So these guarantors came forward and basically said, look, we'll, guarantee him until he goes to court. This cockamamie, fake kind of cockamamie courts, as Bilal says. But there was no process. I mean, it was all fake. It was all lies. When it came to Islam, Sharia, I asked for them many times, what am I being charged of? What's my charges? And they refused to write down for me what my charges are. And then the sad thing was, there was, certain people that came out publicly who spoke out kind of, in defense of HTS, and said that this was fitna and this kind of stuff. And yeah, so basically what ended up happening is I was on this kind of, we call it like bail in the UK, but I was under these guarantees, and they basically said to me, in this time you can't do any media, you can't do any aid work, and your case is going to get dealt with within 2 weeks. So I basically said to him, okay, fine, no problem. I signed the contract or whatever. But as I started to try and press for my rights, basically what happened was I found out that actually this actual Islam in them.
You found out what? You broke up, so you kind of found out what, as you were pushing for your rights, you found out what?
I mean, I knew this anyway, but it just was confirmed to me that these Sharia courts that they're claiming are Islamic courts were just fake. And
which is run by HTS. These Islamic courts are run by HTS.
Which is run by HTS. I mean, even Abu Muhammad Jawlani, who's wanted by the US, he's got like a $10 million bounty on my head. Recently, he done on his head, not my head. But he recently done an interview with PBS, Martin Smith. And when he was asked about torture, about him torturing me and stuff, he was like, we don't have no prisons, and we don't torture anyone, which is all a whole bunch of lies. But anyway, so what I asked for was 3 things. The 7 guarantors that I had, some of them were leaders in HTS, others were my friends. And basically, after 2 weeks of getting nowhere, I said, look, you guys believe that there's some kind of Islamic system here. I'm asking for 3 things, okay? And what I'm asking for is, number 1, my charges written down in writing. I said, even the non-Muslims will give me my charges in writing. Why will you not give me a piece of paper saying what I'm being charged for? I'm being accused of all sorts of stuff, but up until I have nothing in paper. Number 2, I want the right to have a lawyer. I want my sheikh, my teacher, to be my representative. I'm not a student of knowledge. I don't understand many of these mustalahat, these terminologies that they are throwing around. So I want my sheikh to be my lawyer. Again, this is my Islamic right. And number 3, I want a court date, because this has been going on for over 2 weeks. I'm out, but I can't do any aid work. I can't do anything. So this is kind of ridiculous. And I said, if you guys, you 7 guys, you can't do this, then I have to rescind your kafala and take me back to prison. So when I said this to them, they were pissed. They were very, sorry, pardon my French once again, but they were very angered. Who does this guy think he is, that he's going to kind of
make demands,
go back to prison?
Yeah.
So at that point, I tried to, like I said, get the sheikh to be my representative. They were just sending us from one court to another court.
Sounds like a IFS board.
So what I ended up doing is filming a testimony of what happened to me whilst I was in prison with Bilal Abdul Karim. So I spoke about how I was tortured. And again, like I said, some of those 7 brothers, they wanted to cover up that torture. They wanted to say, look, the maslaha is that, we don't speak about it. These are Muslim brothers, and, we shouldn't speak about it. But I'm like, they're torturing Muslims. I got tortured by Muslims, and they told me they have a fatwa for it. And then some of these brothers even said, yeah, we have a fatwa for it. I was like, where's this fatwa? Who's the scholar that said that you can torture Muslims? Because up until now, no one wants to produce this fatwa. So there was a back and forth and all of this kind of stuff. Anyway, what ended up happening is the world that we live in, while I was trying to get a lawyer for my case, I ended up running into the guy that tortured me. Imagine this.
No way.
The guy that tortured me. So
wait, where did you run into him? Just like on the street?
No, they sent us to some offices to basically register my sheikh as a teacher, as a lawyer. So we went there. These were like some security officers who were supposed to see one of their, leaders there, so that we could sign up my sheikh as a lawyer. And whilst we were waiting for that sheikh, he didn't even turn up. He got late. He didn't turn up. So we were about to leave. As we were leaving this complex of theirs, this guy's walking up the stairs and I'm walking down. So now imagine when I was in the prison, I was blindfolded, so I couldn't see who was torturing me and all the things that was going on. Like, it's a lot of it is about trying to psychologically scare you and that kind of stuff. But there were certain things, like when the blindfold had come up slightly, I'd seen like, his kind of,
hairy arms you were talking about.
And little bits and bobs here.
Yeah.
Don't want to give away how I knew who the torturer is
because what? You don't want to give away who the torturer is because what?
No, I said I don't want to give away how I knew who the torturer is because they're probably gonna like crack down on people in their prisons even more. Okay. So anyway, what ended up happening is as he's coming up the stairs, I saw him, and I said to him, "Assalamu alaikum, zakartni? You remember me?" And his eyes just kind of locked into my eyes, and he looked at me, and I just knew, like, his face he froze. He's like, no, I don't know you. I've never seen you before.
I thought you would have kicked him down the stairs.
Man.
Yeah, I felt.
Continue with this. So then what happens?
So I see him, and I'm like, do you remember me? He's like, no. You must be mistaken. I'm like, listen, I'm a man, and you're a man, and I was a prisoner under your prisons, and you tortured me. And Yawm al-Qiyamah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to judge between us.
Allahu Akbar. Wow.
So this guy is looking at me.
He's walked up cry, brother.
Now. He's above me now, and I'm kind of under him. And he said, no. It wasn't me. It's my Emir. He ordered me to, and I'm just following orders. So he admitted it. Okay? So I'm like, your Emir is not going to go to your grave with you. This is all in Arabic, by the way. And I've got my sheikh standing next to me as well. So I'm like, your Emir is not going to go to your grave with you. When I said that to him, he got vexed. And then he basically just started going crazy. I'm going to break your head. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to let you go. I've watched, that's it. Anyway, so what do I do? Being the Western idiot that I am sometimes, I basically pulled out my phone. What do I do?
Record it.
So I'm like, this is the guy that tortured me in prison.
That don't work there, brother.
And then that's it. Basically, all these guys came out of the office. They surrounded me, and then it was like a back and forth. And I was like, listen, I'm not scared of you lot. If you lot do what you want to do, innit? Because I kind of felt that I was going to get arrested anyway. And I knew that I'd filmed my testimony. So I was like, you know what? If these people arrest me, then khalas, my testimony is going to come out. And even when I went to prison, after that, they arrested me and they took me to prison. It's mad because I had my wife with me at that time as well. And it was all screaming and confusion. I'm giving you like the shortened version.
Yeah.
The guy pulled out his gun. The guy pulled out his gun on me as well, and all sorts of stuff. And yeah, so anyway,
you know what's just so surprising that I remember. Hey, Mort, remember when there was this one kid who made fun of my mom and I punched him? I don't know if Amir or Mort was there, but it was about 10, 15 years ago. It was a long time ago, but I remember feeling so bad because I had to punch a Muslim, and he insulted my mom. It was over the phone. He prank called her, but it's a long story. But I don't understand how.
Yeah, there's
like
a guilt. There's a guilt that when you have to fight Muslims, there's a
yeah,
guilt.
when you hit a Muslim, like
especially in the face.
You
feel
Yeah.
like
like
you
you know what I mean. Like
you feel like you shook your iman. That's what happens.
it just feels so wrong.
it feels wrong.
How are you like being the people who are going to be the vanguards of Islam, who are setting up a sham with the Islam, and you're
And they're coming out saying, you know, "Wal-izzatu lillah," you know, they're coming out with all these slogans, you know what I mean? Like they're coming out, and then at the same, it's just crazy to me, man. It's just I can't. How do you make salah and make du'a and for you to get victory when at the same time when after you make your salam, you're gonna go torture somebody?
Yeah, it's sad, bro. Wallahi, it's sad. But like I said again, for me, I knew I was going to get arrested again because of the games that they were playing. And I could have stayed silent. I could have just continued living my life in Idlib, running the projects and doing what we're doing. But again, for us, our goal is Islah, trying to fix the problems in the Ummah. And sometimes you have to bite the bullet. Sometimes you have to pay a price for that. And so basically I ended up getting arrested. Then Bilal, mashallah, may Allah bless him, he basically went out in the media saying that if Tox is not released, then I'm going to expose certain people that, you know, covered up the torture, who are quite prominent people outside, who kind of, you know,
Put them on notice, yeah.
without mentioning their names, but may Allah, you know, guide them.
I mean,
And so he did that. So then they went and arrested him as well, and then the rest is history.
That's how he got arrested.
That's how he got arrested.
I didn't know that was
he's
true,
a loyal,
but he got arrested.
He's a loyal friend, mashallah. And again, this is not about friendship. It's about deen. For us, this is what these brothers, they don't understand. For us, what we say and what we do is based on an ijtihad and based on what we know from the scholars. Okay. And we are willing to discuss with any brother from the other side and discuss these issues and say that, look, this is our Islamic evidence for what we're saying and what we're doing. We don't believe in this kind of thing that the Emir can do whatever the hell he wants. He can torture and oppress the Muslims and you stay silent. And what these brothers, they like to do is similar to what the Madkhalis do, is that it's crazy because these guys were involved in a revolution, but now it's like you can't speak out against the ruler.
Yeah, somehow I thought, they just want you, they want to say
They're
that
not fit for
khuruj
leadership.
against them is what that tells me, brother, is that they wanted power all along. This is what they
It's
wanted.
not only that, they're not fit for power.
No,
That's
but what
all
I'm
it
saying is whether they fit or unfit is we're talking about their desire. They wanted power. They were willing to use all kinds of haram activities in order to get this power, and then they used the very reasons that they used to get power. They've forbidden other people to use now that they have power. What does that tell you? It means that this was a power struggle.
vicious cycle. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
sadly, bro, but this is what it is. It's a fitna, bro. Power, wealth.
Yeah.
May Allah protect us from these things. It's a fitna. You got to understand a lot of these people maybe possibly didn't have wealth or position before.
Yeah.
And now that they're in that position, it's become a fitna for them. I mean,
But
when
Tox-
people say to us, some people accuse us, some British brothers and people in the West that are kind of fanboys of this organization. We say, Akhi, these are our brothers, okay? They're Muslims. But at the end of the day, for us, we never came here for any group or any person. We came here for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to stop the oppression. So now we will speak the truth, whether it harms us. Now, one of the things they say is, you guys have an agenda. Okay, what's my agenda? I'm some stateless guy. It's going to make my life harder. I'm going to be at risk of all sorts of, things. I've had to get up and move my whole family to a different place. What's my agenda? What do I gain? I don't gain anything at all, except for the fact that, inshallah, we've spoken a word of truth, and there's many people that are being tortured in their prisons right now. There's many people that are being, indefinitely detained. And, Bilal the Cream, our brother, he's doing a program every week talking about some of the issues. And sadly, it's a thing that nobody wants to talk about. People shy away from it, and they're like, we don't want to talk about this. It's fitna. It's not fitna. The reality is if we're not going to be willing to speak out against our own brothers and sisters when they're doing wrong, then we will never gain victory, and this is what I feel. If we're not willing, one of the things that the West has achieved, and and I say this, people might say, oh, this is some kind of liberal viewpoint. I say, look, Donald Trump couldn't do and say whatever the hell he wanted. Okay, he said some outrageous stuff and he done loads of stuff, but at the end of the day, there was some kind of system where eventually, there was the impeachment. They tried to impeach him and all of that kind of stuff. It
There was
shows what
pushback,
there's
right?
there's some level of accountability. So why don't we have this in Muslim countries? Just because they say La ilaha illallah, there's no accountability now. And we know from the Sahaba.
Yeah.
And this is when I discuss with these brothers, I say the Sahaba had ikhtilaf. There was times, when the Sahaba openly and publicly, do you understand, said to the Khalif, whether it was Umar bin Khattab or whether it was Uthman bin Affan, that look, we don't agree with what you're saying. So yeah, I think this again, it's one of those things that is exploited in the Deen, that people will say that you're doing khuruj. We're not doing khuruj, akhi. We're just saying that there's an injustice going on.
There's accountability.
Yeah, if we don't stop this, Allah's not going to give us victory.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
And this is what we all want. We want victory. We want to have a Dawlat Islam that brings barakah, that brings an example. And here's the funny part. This is what really bothers me about all of us, is that people in the beginning wanted to support the resistance. They wanted to. They desired it. Because, Bashar al-Assad, the Alawis, we saw what they did. We're not justifying what they did. But now they have a leg to stand on and say, you see what happens when you allow the Muslims to take, or you see what happens when they can't even do it. They can't, they're just like us. Yeah. At least with us, you have an economy. You have this. You have schools.
Agreed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, which is this is the greatest tragedy of it all to me, because at the end of the day, it made something so valuable, it tarnished it in the eyes of people.
Yeah.
I mean, not in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it can never be tarnished, but in the eyes of people who don't know the reality.
For generations.
But this is what I'm saying now. Yeah. I'll give you an example, yeah? All right. This is where it comes back down to what I said in the beginning, when it comes to knowledge and who you take knowledge from, having real scholars and tullab al-ilm. Now, if we look at the situation, for example, in Afghanistan, when the Taliban took Kabul, look how they took Kabul. They could have exacted revenge. They could have went crazy. And you had the likes of Mufti Taqiyuddin Uthmani coming out and saying that it reminded him of what? Fath al-Makkah.
Yeah.
Does this mean that they are some innocent group and they don't have crimes and whatever? It doesn't mean that. We're not saying that, okay, there's some perfect group. But the point that we're mentioning is that when you do things that are honorable and in line with the teachings of Islam, then even the West will have to sing your praises and say, okay, wow, these guys came in, they didn't massacre and mercilessly, they were protecting the airport and that kind of stuff, even if they don't like the Taliban and that kind of stuff. So I think this is sometimes what our brothers need to look at and say that, okay, you believe you're torturing people for some maslaha, not even torturing Muslims for some maslaha. I just don't understand it. How do you think Allah is going to give you barakah and give you victory? It just makes no sense.
Did anyone from the leadership of HTS reach out to you and say, hey, you know what, I'm sorry, this is what happened. It was a big mistake. People didn't communicate to the leadership, to their their chain of command or channels of communication to explain what actually happened to you? Were any kind of conciliatory branches offered towards you? Under
the table. This is what you need to understand, is that a lot of these people are scared. They're scared that their own group is going to kind of,
exactly like the Muslim government.
That's what it's become. It's become a situation where if you're either with us or you're against us.
Right.
So many of these guys, without mentioning names, again, I don't want people to come to harm, but some of them said to me, look, we're really sorry, and whatever, but we can't do nothing. Others said we're sorry, and the only reason why we're with this group is because for our own protection. If we leave this group, then we are kind of
it's like gang mentality. But no one, it's like gang mentality, bro.
But no one from HTS, at least from their officials from HTS, gave you an olive branch, like, hey, we're sorry, let's water on the bridge, let's move forward, I'm sorry, here's some I don't know, goat cheese or something as a peace offering. And
goat cheese?
I don't know, feta cheese. What you guys, what the fellas eat over there in
Falafel. There was no apology, but when me and Bilal came out of prison, one of the big leaders, he did invite us to have some food and stuff, which we refused. We didn't go. He was like, come have a meal, you guys, you've given a lot for the revolution, that kind of stuff. But yeah, we didn't attend.
Yeah, I mean, why would you? I mean, the second time you met them, you got picked up again. So why would you put that yourself in that position to get picked up again? It doesn't make any sense.
I don't want to paint the whole group as a bunch of bandits, because that's not the case. They're not all, bandits, and they're not all haramis. They've got some stuff which is good, and stuff that they're doing which is good for the ummah in Idlib, because they don't control all of the freed areas.
No, you made that very, very clear about, some of them coming to you and apologize, but they need protection and all that.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, what I speak about is that, again, these people are under, again. Okay.
Keep going.
Anyways, they're under this this thuggery, right? Meaning that like, they may feel it's wrong, but they have to obey, because if they're not, their own protection is a safety. So what I'm saying is that I'm not saying that all these individuals are bad, but they could make better decisions, Allahu Alam.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not. I don't believe it's coming from their inside or their desire to do this, but rather more out of fear. And it's operating like a gang. I don't know if you've ever been around in gangs, but when you get involved with a gang, there's no way out. Blood in, blood out. If either you're in or you're out.
Look,
Right?
I'll be honest, Tox. When I heard about your situation and Bilal Abdul Karim's situation, I was really disappointed, and I saw that this kind of behavior that was dealt towards your guy made a lot of people feel a sigh of relief, like, oh my God, like I thought HTS was someone who they're the last people I was going to be placing some trust in, and they've even breached that trust, at least from the West, right? I'm talking about the people who've seen, because you and Bilal are like, Bilal's from America and you're from UK. From these two regions, you're the most prominent people who are over there, and when we see you guys who gave your lives for this cause, experiences from HTS, we're like, well, you know what, alhamdulillah, I mean, you guys are always in our du'as, but I'm kind of glad I didn't go there now,
For me, it wasn't that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, but I'm saying that's what
I don't think if you ask me and Bilal,
yeah,
and you were to ask us, do we have any regrets? I'll say not one. Why? Alhamdulillah, there was, and I don't want this to be some sub story. I got tortured and I was 4.5 months in solitary confinement, all that. No, it's not. To be honest, 100% with regards to what the Sheikh said, Alhamdulillah, prison, I believe 100% made me and him stronger. And there's certain lessons that I learned, inshallah, that I hope to speak about one day on social media. There's certain lessons that I learned in prison that I could never have learned anywhere else. So in one way, which this might sound kind of weird for you guys, I kind of thank, Hayat Tahrir Sham for putting me in prison, because I had that time to ponder on, the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I had a Quran, I had a pen and paper and that kind of stuff. And it just brought me back to reality. Really, one of the things that I thought was, wow, I'm in this cell, 1 by 2 meters, got a toilet in the corner. This is like my grave. It was like a maut musaggar for me, like a small death. My wife, my children, my wealth, my project, everything was gone, taken from me in a flash. So it humbled me. And I realized that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I always had in my mind that inshallah I'm going to get out of here one day. So while I'm in this situation, I need to make the most of it. So alhamdulillah, I did a lot of hifz of Quran and, a lot of ibadah, and it was beneficial for me, man. If I talk about the fada'il, the benefits, it's that I kind of gained from prison. Some people might be like, right, you're crazy. I mean, there was other people that came in prison, they dealt with it very badly. But I think for me and Bilal, one of the things that we were kind of saying is that alhamdulillah, we were oppressed and not the oppressors. So even some of the guards, they were like, how come you guys are always happy? We're like, alhamdulillah, because we're here for speaking the truth. And alhamdulillah, there's nothing, better than that. Being a political prisoner, speaking the truth. For us, we 100% believe that what we said and what we done is in line with Sharia and pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So yeah, prison was an experience. If you ask me, would I change it for anything? I wouldn't change it. But if you ask me, would I like to go back? Of course, I wouldn't want to go back. But alhamdulillah for everything. Really, it's given me more motivation, more drive. I realized that, subhanAllah, one of the du'as that I was always making in prison is, Ya Allah, استخدمنا ولا تستبدلنا. Utilize us for the sake of your deen and don't replace us. Because I realized, wow, now I no longer have the opportunity to help people like I did. That ni'mah, that thing that I just took for granted, it's been taken away from me. So
Wow.
yeah, man, it was
It looks like
another
you,
turning point in life.
you graduated from the University of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam.
Allahu Akbar.
So you pick up those lessons that you can only get.
I'm not gonna lie, that's the smartest thing, the most beautiful thing you ever said, and I love you for it. No, that comparison is beautiful, because that's what the whole story of Yusuf alayhi salam is. How much benefit he derived.
Alhamdulillah. I have some good in me. Alhamdulillah.
No, you do, man. So now this is all happening in Idlib. So then you move to where you are now, right? You get out of there, and now what's your life like now compared to when it was in Idlib? Humanitarian work, just personal life. All
man's got a TV, bro. He's doing good. He can watch footy.
MashaAllah.
No, you said you're in Halab, because last we heard about Halab is that it's a lot of devastation and destruction. Is the city back up and things are running?
Okay, so where we are, we're in the countryside of Aleppo. I'm actually close to a place called Marj Dabek, which you must have heard of.
Oh, I know Dabek.
It's a place that the Prophet ﷺ prophesied. So there's a lot of history here.
Also, ISIS newsletter.
ISIS newsletter, they obviously played in that.
they called it Dabek.
I know.
They call it Dabek. But obviously it's something that is in the hadith, it's there. So,
of course,
I mean, for us, we're not going to allow ISIS to kind of take something that is the ummah's. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Just want to put that out there.
I'm glad you did.
But yeah, in terms of the conflict, what you guys need to understand is that the freed territories, or Syria in general, is split up into different territories. So you've got the regime areas, which are split between the Iranians, Hezbollah, Russia, and basically they're the regime areas which has taken back most of the country. You've got the eastern kind of desert areas close to Iraq, which are controlled by America and the YPG, they're Kurdish backed kind of forces, and they basically control most of the oil in Syria. So they're the biggest benefactors of the war in Syria, resource-wise, is America and the US. Then you have the free territories, which is more northwest, which are split into two. You've got Idlib, which is controlled by HTS and their Salvation government, and then you've got the more northern territories, which are controlled by the Free Syrian Army and the Turkish government, in a sense. So in these areas, sadly, there's very few foreigners. Alhamdulillah, again, one of the blessings that we have is because we've been always very open about our work. Our Turkish brothers and sisters, they know that we're not extremists. They know that, requested that we come and we work in these areas. And alhamdulillah, that's what we're doing. For us, the ummah here in the countryside of Aleppo and in the countryside of Idlib is the same. They're all the same Syrian people. And most people from these territories come and go. So the borders, like in that sense, are quite fluid. There's checkpoints between Idlib and the countryside of Aleppo. But these areas are more, you could say, everywhere you go, you see a Turkish flag and you see a Free Syrian Army flag. All the road signs are now in Turkish. You've got Turkish banks. The Turks are spending a lot on infrastructure here. So alhamdulillah, we're helping to rebuild, orphan villages and infrastructure, masajid, schools, that kind of stuff, so that we can, serve the ummah.
I just one quick question. Just a little bit of side note about like the white helmets. What is happening with them now? I couldn't really find too much online about them. And have you got a chance to ever work with them? Yeah,
I've worked with the white helmets. It's a funny story, actually. The white helmets. I volunteered with them a couple of times back in the day in Aleppo. We used to, support some of them, give them food boxes and stuff. And these guys are heroes. They're lifesavers. Some of the work that they do is second to none. Basically, running into places where airstrikes are taking place, and many of them lose their lives because the Russians employ a double tactic where places hit, the ambulance drivers and the civil defense force, white helmets, they go in and then they hit it again and basically kill them to dissuade people from trying to save people. So I've been firsthand with these guys. They are still working. It's funny because when all of my stuff happened, with all the citizenship stuff, there was a photo that went out of me with a white helmet on. they basically put a statement out saying that we've never worked with this guy and whatever, which was quite sad. But I spoke to some of the leadership and they were like, "Look, we're sorry, we had to do that," sort of thing. I was like, "No problem, man. No problem. So good, so good."
You gotta do what you gotta do, right?
Yeah, man. No, it just reminded me when you said Turkey and stuff. I know that they got some training from Turkey and protocols and stuff. So
So how do people like get like? I mean, I think we just want to give people an option to help donate to anything that you're doing over there. So how do they do that from other countries if they want to help support your efforts for the orphans and things like that? So how can they do that?
And do you take Bitcoin? As a payment?
You guys should get on Bitcoin, bro.
Bitcoin, man.
We do take Bitcoin somewhere. I need to find like the address or whatever. But
mashallah.
The funny thing is HTS has recently closed all of the Bitcoin people that were trading in Bitcoin in Idlib, which is so crazy. This happened just like last week.
Wow.
Why? Allah knows best. But anyway, that's that. So alhamdulillah, in Aleppo we can get Bitcoin. But if anyone wants to donate, they can go to www.syrianeedsyou.com. Our charity partner that we work with is registered in Turkey. It's called Bir Ummat. And
it's called what?
Bir Ummat, which basically means
Bir Ummah, mean for the Ummah, right? It means Bir Ummah.
No, I thought you said beer for a second. I was like, Bir Ummah, what?
Beer means one.
Yeah, one.
Sheikh, you're from the people of.
That's what I heard. Bro, I'm sorry, but now people are gonna know for sure.
And blue-eyed devil.
Anyways, bira is bear. Beer is one. So you can make that mistake.
Beautiful.
It's okay. We know where his intentions are now, but you can continue.
Very much so.
Brothers and sisters, please help out Tox and all the efforts that he's involved with. Well, Tox, can you please make sure you send us the links for whatever we can share with our listeners, and we'll pin it in the comment section below and in the description of this episode so that they can.
We want to use our platform to help you and Bilal any way we can, inshallah, because media is very important. So whatever we can do to help out, even after the show, if you want something comes up, you have our contacts. I'll give you them as well too. Anytime something comes up and it's important to speak about and get it across, we'll be happy.
May Allah bless you, man. May Allah bless you guys for being, brave enough to talk about some of these topics. But sadly, one of the issues that we have in the ummah is that, we are kind of, afraid. And I don't think we should be afraid of speaking about these issues, because as a ummah, if we don't understand the ailments and the illnesses that we face from within, then we're never going to find solutions. We're never going to be able to make those changes that we want to see. So, Jazakallah khairan to you guys.
Jazakallah khairan.
And last thing, was this, out of all the people, you could be honest, was this the most unique interview you had from people or chill session you had?
Yeah, I loved it, man. You guys, mashallah, amazing brothers, man. Inshallah.
Inshallah, one day we meet in person. Inshallah, one day. Inshallah, one day.
If we made you happy, brother, that's all that matters, dude.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Make sure you send us your comments, your thoughts related to the episode. Maybe you have a few comments or questions for our guest. Let us know in the comment section below. Make sure you smash that like button. You know what? No, don't smash it. Just put it in a Syrian prison. All right, and
torture that like button.
Okay. Really bad. All right.
That's a really bad joke. That's a really bad joke.
You guys made him feel uncomfortable towards the end, bro. Hey, look how uncomfortable he is. Look at Ali Qureshi, bro.
He's laughing, bro. We put a big smile on his face.
After the show, I'm gonna send you a picture of my cousin. You'll be like, holy cow.
The Sheikh's very protective over me.
Of course I am, bro.
Yeah, he is, mashallah.
You're a gentleman. Why not?
Yeah, because you guys are good people. We're the kind of evil-hearted people. So
actually, I'm gonna agree with that. That's very true.
We were the born troublemakers. We keep him in the show to kind of keep us in line. Otherwise, we'd just be off the rails. So, alhamdulillah, the blue-eyed devil keeps us.
He called you blue-eyed devil.
All right, guys. We'll see y'all next time. Assalamu alaikum.